Well, welcome to the fourth Saturday in October podcast, the SEC Tailgate podcast for the rest of us. I'm Tennessee Bradley. Across from me is Alabama Chris. Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. It's our rivalry week. And even though that we named this podcast the third Saturday in October podcast because of the rivalry between Tennessee Volunteers and the Alabama Crimson Tide, yet again, we have another year where the actual rivalry game falls on a week that's not third Saturday in October, but I'll take it. If we need to be the fourth Saturday in October podcast for 2020, hey, everything else changes this year. Why not change the name of the podcast? So we're excited about this. We've got the 8th week of college football. We've got the 5th week of SEC football, and we've got week 1 of Big Ten football. So even more college games to get excited about. And it's a little sad that we only have 4 SEC games to get excited about. Again, at this point in the game or this stage in the week, we could have one or all of them canceled between now and Saturday. But we are excited to be here. I'm pumped to talk about all things football. Let's dive into it, brother.
Yes, sir. Well, with only 4 games, each game gets a little bit bigger piece of the pie of the excitement pie. That's just a little foreshadowing. Hang on till the end of the show. It'll make sense.
I see what you did there.
But yeah, we talk about Tennessee's frustrations. We talk about what the heck is happening in the SEC. We find solace in the Titans, who have an Alabama player doing a lot of good things. We dive into the NFL a little bit just to check in on some of our favorite players from our favorite universities. So, Chris, let's get the fourth Saturday in October rolling right now.
Let's do it, brother.
Chris.
Yes, sir.
I just got an update on my phone. Here it says that, of course, my virtual background just blurred out my phone, but Jared Garantano has been intercepted, just returned for a touchdown again. They're not even in practice. He's probably studying, and his computer has been intercepted and returned to Best Buy.
I heard he was taking a test. He tried to turn in that test. Somebody then intercepted that test and turned it in for their own.
Yeah. And they got a good grade.
Oh, yeah.
But it was returned to the wrong university, to the wrong class.
Oh, man. This season.
It was
what is even going on?
Promising. We beat South Carolina. It's like we should have won by more than that. Then we beat Missouri worse than Alabama beat Missouri. It's like, hey, okay. And then we played Georgia well for a half. And Tennessee plays Georgia a bit like Georgia plays Alabama. If you end at halftime,
we're good.
If you play the second half, don't watch. So I don't know what to think. Then, because Garantano throws pick 6 on the boundary, makes sense. There's nobody there. Then he throws a pick 6 to a linebacker in the middle of the field on the 15-yard line. He has to run 85 yards through people. Scores a touchdown.
Yeah.
Then we bench him, put our second string quarterback in. What does he do? Throws an interception.
Yeah.
What
do you even do?
Tennessee
you even
quit.
Coach Pruitt. Yeah. It feels like that they just kind of threw up their hands there, and that was disheartening.
Yeah.
But if you're Coach Pruitt, what do? Do you start Garantano?
You
start from scratch?
You fire your defensive line coach in the middle of the game. That's the headline I just saw, that Pruitt fired Jimmy Brumbaugh during the game, not even after the game, during the game. I didn't see him leave the sideline. So I don't know what's going on there. A lot of talk in Tennessee camp is, did he fire the right guy?
Yeah.
And Pruitt, being a defensive coach, I think he wants to have a defense good enough that he can have a mediocre offense and still win. It was the Saban way until Lane Kiffin got to Tuscaloosa.
Sure.
The defensive line has been underperforming for a group that, yeah, they lost some edge rushers, some technically outside linebackers, but they're defensive ends, really.
Yeah.
But the interior of the line was supposed to be solid. They've had game experience and given up 150 rush yards per game so far, or something close to that.
Yeah.
But what happens at the quarterback? Here's my thought. Jeremy Pruitt has worked at building his defense, building his offensive line, a little bit receivers. He's got one really good recruit and a true freshman, Harrison Bailey, I believe is his name. So he's now starting to recruit the quarterback position. You can't fix everything at once.
True.
Is Garantano good enough to win you some games? I mean, he did against Auburn a couple years ago. He led some comebacks at the end of last season. Granted, that was against some lesser competition, but that included Kentucky, who was, I think, a top 10 team, top 15 team. But Kentucky winning a couple games in a row with not a whole lot of offense.
Yeah, this is what I continue to harp on every week here. It's the year that anything goes and no one knows what will happen kind of thing. Because I still, it's weird after watching Tennessee last week that there's something about it that I still have faith in them, but I don't know that I have the faith in Garantano just from a mental standpoint. Yeah. It seems like that, after you do something like that, we saw somebody like Aaron Rodgers, who is just stout and consistent and dependable. He threw 2 interceptions last week. But it's the mental game that will allow him to get back up. But I don't know what Garantano has in the tank left after a game like that, where he throws 2 interceptions and then he's benched, and so that's another hit to the ego. Like what happens there? And then having Alabama coming up this week, gosh, who knows? But interesting. Do you think that there's any thought that Jeremy Pruitt, after what he's done building up to this point, should have any sort of hot seat talk?
I don't know. I think it all depends on. I think he should at least be given. Personally, I like the guy. I think he's doing great things. And if I look at it from, you can't fix everything immediately, give him some time to fix the quarterback position.
Yeah.
It is a little bit of an unknown as to why Garantano hasn't improved. It's his second year with Jim Chaney. It's his third year with Chris Winkie, his quarterback coach. The receivers coach, T. Martin, hasn't changed. So these pieces have been in place for a while. Why is Garantano not improving? And maybe it's just he's hit his ceiling.
That's possible.
I think it's all, you say it, good coaches develop players, but there are some players who just can't develop past a point, and maybe he's hit that point.
Yeah, that's a good point. I find it, though, unfortunate for Tennessee in the position that they're in, knowing their biggest rivals, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, are all on runs right now where they find themselves in the top 10 in both the AP and the coaches polls. So that's tough, for a fan base to know that, like, your 3 biggest rivals right now are, for the most part, firing on all cylinders, or at least a top 10 year at this point. So that's unfortunate, and I don't think should go overlooked when looking at the outcome of several of these games. But one, like with Kentucky, I expected it to be much more competitive. But maybe if you've got Garantano doing what he did, and then your other quarterback that took over for him immediately throwing him interceptions, like that it's just a death blow of confidence and want to get back in the game at that point. So frustrating, to say the least.
Yeah, and Georgia's got what looks to be a great defensive line. They were getting pressure, busting through Tennessee's offensive line, which I thought, and a lot of other people thought, was a really great offensive line. And they just haven't played that well outside of the Missouri game. That Missouri game was the first game that Cade Mays was available. So I give them a little bit of a pass against South Carolina, although against South Carolina, I can't remember who our fifth offensive lineman was, but 3 of them are 5 stars. The center is an Alabama transfer who's a 6th-year senior who is a 4-star, so he's no slouch either. You've got beef, you've got talent on the offensive line. What's going on there? So some people have said, why fire Brumbaugh? You should fire Will Friend, the offensive line coach, for underperforming. I think a big test will be, does Tennessee compete, and do they compete for 60 minutes? Because they didn't compete for 60 minutes. They competed for 15, 17 minutes on Saturday against Kentucky. That was the part that was most frustrating for me. And in some ways, I want to blame the coach. In some ways, I want to blame the players. I'm a San Antonio Spurs fan. Greg Popovich, when asked, hey, do you feel like you motivated your players enough before the game? And I understand it's professional, but this is SEC football. This is as close to the NFL as you're going to get without getting to the NFL. And Coach Pop's reply was, look, if they're not motivated, that I can't do anything. If they're not self-motivated, there's nothing I can do to motivate them. If they're not motivated to put in the work and go out there and give 100%, there's not much I can do. And I tend to believe that you've got to, if you've got to want it, it's got to be internal. Because if somebody else has to motivate you to do it, I don't think you really want it. And Tennessee on Saturday against Kentucky did not want it. First home loss to Kentucky since, I think it was 1984. Longest home winning streak against an opponent in college football.
Wow.
Bye-bye. Tennessee's great at breaking streaks this year. Against Georgia, they let go the I think a tie for the longest win streak in college football. And then against Kentucky, gave up the longest win streak at home against any one opponent. So what's next? What streaks can we break next?
Yeah, it's frustrating. Tennessee ended last season on such a high note. What was it? A 7-game win streak to round out the season. But again, maybe Garantano had more weapons at wideout last year. I think that they lost several. So maybe only 1 or 2 of his targets from last year are really and truly back. Who knows?
That is true. We lost Marquez Callaway and Jawan Jennings. However, these receivers that we've got now, I think I said it a week or two ago, they are making these athletic catches that, I mean, really shouldn't be completions and helping out his quarterback. But it's, he's missing way off the mark on too many throws. I don't know that there are a whole lot of drop passes. I think there were some against Kentucky. I don't know. It's just it's a bad week to be a Tennessee Vol fan.
Well, it's frustrating to say the least. But I agree with you. I don't think that Jeremy Pruitt should be in a position where his job security should be called into question now. But just it's tough to be in the position that he is in. And I think that you have very good insight in saying that you can't fix everything all at once. It's got to be a process. But speaking of just hot seat talk, I read an article on Bleacher Report about coaches that should they or should they not be in the hot seat. And they took like the top 10 possibilities of hot seat talk. 3 of those came from the SEC, which were Gus Malzahn at Auburn, Will Muschamp at South Carolina, and Derek Mason at Vandy. You think any of those have any credence to be in the hot seat this year, or is this just one of these anomaly years where you're not going to make a lot of changes just because of 2020 being what it is?
It may be a hard year to make changes just because the cards are stacked against everybody. Will Muschamp, I mean, South Carolina is a hard place to win. Steve Spurrier couldn't really. I mean, he never won the SEC to my knowledge, or the East when he was at South Carolina. It's a tough place to coach. I think he's done a better job than he did at Florida. Muschamp, that is.
Right.
Derek Mason, Vandy is also a tough place to win just because they put such high standards on the academic side that, I mean, it's not all your football players are 4.0 GPA students. So I don't know, but I do feel like that may be the closest one to needing to change. Gus Malzahn, he beats Alabama every couple of years. I think Auburn would rather go winless but beat Alabama than be undefeated except for the Iron Bowl. I truly think that is the lifeblood at Auburn. And I think you have to really look at yourself and say, are we okay with an up and down year and beating Alabama?
Right.
Or do we want to not compete with Alabama just in the Iron Bowl, but compete with them every week?
Yeah. For the SEC West race. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing. I saw a headline that Gus wants to get back to hard-nosed football. And I'm thinking, well, why haven't you done that? I mean, I feel like Gus's offenses have always been just littered with trickery and, reverse, double reverse, trying to not be that old school, just pound the rock football.
You know what? I completely agree. It seems like that Gus Malzahn and Will Muschamp, for that matter, always do they pull something out of their hat at a point in the season where it matters, to where when you look back, it's like, well, it wasn't what we wanted it to be, but it wasn't like, at least we got that signature win, or something like that. There's always something that seems like that it gives them job security for the next year. But nothing that consistently makes it look like that they're going to be a competitive long-term in either the SEC West for Auburn or SEC East for South Carolina. Derek Mason, it seems like one of those things where it's Vandy. What are you going to do? Like they make the SEC look legitimate as far as and keeping our academic pride alive, but they've never really been a shining example of football playing for the SEC.
Yeah.
And so it's like you almost know that going in to a coaching position at Vanderbilt. But I could not agree with you more. Gus seems to always try to make it look fancier maybe than it needs to be. I feel like right now with Bo Nix's struggles, that the best thing that they could do is just run the ball, just hard nose up the middle football. But it doesn't seem like that's something that he wants or is willing to do because it's not as flashy or something. I don't know. This is my amateur take on this, but it seems like that if they ran the ball more, that maybe they could give Bo a break to feel like that he's got to carry that offense week in and week out.
I agree. I think Tennessee should do the same thing. They've got a couple of great backs in Ty Chandler and Eric Gray. Just hand the ball off. Tell your offensive line, we are going to run until we literally cannot run anymore. Which, hang on, let me take this. Really? Jared Gantano's just been picked off again, returned for a touchdown.
Oh, no.
So just run the ball. When you've got running backs like Tennessee has, when you've got a quarterback who isn't going to win a game on his own, there are some quarterbacks that can do that. I think Kyle Trask can do that. Mac Jones can do that. I saw stats compared to Tua through the first 17 starts or 7 starts. I don't know what it was. And it was comparable or better than what Tua was doing. Who are some of the other I was thinking of somebody else too.
Kellen Mond over in Texas A&M is shown a lot of moxie this year.
Yeah,
I kind of wrote Kellen Mond off like I have some of the other quarterbacks that had a lot of potential and a lot of promise, but didn't actually pull through. But he seems like that he's gotten his confidence and some win underneath him. He's playing a lot better these days than I would have thought.
Well, just going back to last season, we had Tua, we had Joe Burrow. You've got these quarterbacks who, march out there with no running backs, put 5 receivers out there all the time and try to cover them all. Quarterbacks that can make every throw. Bo Nix, Jarrett Garantano, not looking like that right now. Garantano, a 5th-year senior. Bo Nix, I think a true sophomore.
Sophomore, yeah. Yeah, last year him winning the SEC Rookie of the Year award. Now looking back on it, I was in complete agreement, even though he wasn't perfect last year. But now thinking about it, I wonder if that was more of an emotional win. He's such a great story, such a good storyline to be an Auburn quarterback and wanting that his whole life and then getting put in that position. Like as an Alabama fan, I'm rooting for him. I want to see him get out there and ball. Yeah. And it just, I'll say this for the second week in a row. If you can rattle him, you got a good chance of being able to have your way with that entire offense, just because he's going to make some kind of boneheaded play. And again, this isn't an Alabama homer kind of, I'm going to dump on my biggest rival's quarterback. I'm just trying to look at it objectively. I want to see the guy rock out every week because it's great when the SEC is firing on all cylinders and the people that you're expecting to bring it every week, the teams that you're expecting, that the Tennessees, the Auburns, I get pumped about that. But right now the SEC it kind of, and again, maybe this isn't the best year to make a judgment like this, but it's a confusing year all around. Just a couple of weeks ago, we were like, Mississippi is here to stay. And then now it's like, what has happened in Mississippi? So it's all over the board. You've got a team that maybe one of the greatest teams of all time, if not the greatest. I know that maybe some USC Trojans and some Ohio State Buckeyes would argue with that assessment, but the LSU Tigers last year were the LSU Bayou Bengals were just incredible. But then this year, it's like they don't have an identity. Now, apparently, they don't even have a quarterback because of Miles Brennan's significant lower body injury, whatever that may be. I heard Coach O say, he was quoted as saying, like, who's going to start if Miles Brennan is not going to be able to be there? And he said, we're bringing back Joe Burrow.
There's no telling what he's we're going to go, we're going to go, we're going to go Tigers. That's all. Go Tigers is all you can hear him say, even though he's wrong, because it should be go Bayou Bengals.
Go Bengals, yeah.
I mean, don't hurt me, Coach O. I think you could, but please don't. So who knows what he said. But going back to Bo Nix being a good story, Georgia, Stetson Bennett, the fourth, I think he's the fourth.
Numero cuatro. Yeah.
The mailman. Grew up a Georgia fan, wanted to play quarterback at University of Georgia, goes as a walk-on. He 5'8", 5'9", maybe 5'10". He's short for a quarterback. Goes to junior college because I don't know, he's fifth or sixth on the depth chart. really starts to tear things up in junior college, then comes back to Georgia and very quickly gets elevated to starting quarterback because guys opting to sit out, guys being hurt, guys just not having the being in the same headspace that they were a year ago, and looking pretty great until he sees Alabama. What's funny is Georgia's running backs look better against Alabama than they had all season.
Oh yeah, yeah. Again, well, like you were saying earlier, first half of that game, going in with a lead at halftime against Alabama, it seemed like they had all the answers. I was nervous coming back into the third quarter, but it seemed like something happened in the locker room with both of those teams, and the trajectories kind of switched, and Bama never looked back.
Classic Saban smart matchup of Saban's just sandbagging it first half so that he can show his dominance in the second half.
Maybe so. Maybe you got a point there.
Man, kind of the opposite of Gus Malzahn in that Georgia can win every game except against Alabama.
And Auburn can lose every game except against Alabama.
Gus has never coached with Saban. So it's not like he's got insider knowledge, I don't think. It made, I don't know what's going on there, but
it's almost as if Gus Malzahn and the Auburn Tigers could figure out a way to, the Auburn War Eagles could figure out a way to get hyped up for other games as much as they get ready and prepped and hyped up for their cross-state rival. Then maybe that's it. Maybe it's a mental game.
Just pretend you're playing Alabama every week.
Right. Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
You should have at least a 500 season.
True. Okay. So speaking of a season trying to go 500, last week also we have Ole Miss coming off a loss to Alabama, but just the storylines were, who cares if we lost? Look how good we looked against Alabama. And then they get a loss to Arkansas. So now you've got Arkansas that looks like the presumptive number 2 or number 3 place in the SEC West. Again, the season that anything can happen and probably will. We've got Arkansas, who is just assumed to just be the dog of the SEC West. Now, second or third, maybe it's Alabama, A&M, and then Arkansas at this point, which is just nuts.
Yeah. Arkansas, who'd have thunk it? I don't. I mean, I don't know that their quarterback play has been great. I don't know how they're doing it. I mean, I know they shut down Mississippi State with defense.
Yeah.
And again, Mississippi State coming in first week, just beating LSU, and then just talk about falling off the cliff. Woof.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that as like bulldog woof. Because they are the air raid pirates now. The Mississippi State Pirates. So I guess when you fall off the cliff is I don't. It is weird, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. I love an all SEC schedule. Now Tennessee's the cupcake. I
am.
I can't wait to get past the Alabama game.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we also play Auburn and A&M. I think Auburn's going to be a good matchup. But after Alabama, then Florida's at the end of the season. We get a little bit of a break. Let's see what kind of a run we can go on between Alabama and Florida.
Yeah, that's true. Speaking of the end of the season, I think, again, right as of now, we've got Ole Miss and Mississippi State playing each other, I believe, November the 28th. I think it's their second to last game of the season. That could be a 400-point game, or it could be 2-0 at the end of it. Who knows? Again, from week to week, the identities of those teams over Mississippi are so bonkers that it may not be pretty, but it is exciting to watch just because you don't know what you're going to get.
Well, I went to the lake with some friends this weekend, some family friends, and Tennessee lost, Auburn lost, Mississippi State lost. All three teams. Of all the people in the house, those were the three teams we were rooting for.
Oh gosh,
we were fans of those three teams. We said, okay, we're never watching football together ever again.
That's a jinx. Absolutely.
Yeah, no kidding. But yeah, for I think though, who do I think will bounce back first between Lane Kiffin and Mike Leach? I think it's going to be Lane Kiffin. I think if only because he has been in the SEC twice now.
Yeah.
This is his third stint in the SEC as a coach, his second stint as a head coach. I think he knows you got to rebound quick because even you can lose bye weeks. Florida, what did you tell me? Florida has 30-something confirmed cases, and we're not talking Nick Saban false positive, then being cleared. They got a bunch of players that have tested positive for COVID.
Yeah, I think between players and coaches and personnel, there are 31 confirmed cases as of the recording of this show. So yeah, that's pretty nuts. And it seemed like to me that Coach Mullen was trying to do a good job of hyping up his team, hyping up his staff, hyping up his fan base. Like, let's pack the swamp. Let's get it going. And then after that,
let's pack it full of positive tests.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it looks like that now there'll probably be about as many positive tests as there are people in the stadium when they resume playing. Because of that, schedules, matchups, calendar, everything's just up in the air. I think we went from a supposed 5-game week this week to a 4-game week which Georgia should have been playing Kentucky this week because of the scheduling and the issues at Florida. They have another week off where Florida was going to be playing Missouri. Now Missouri is playing Kentucky. Georgia got a bye week a week early, and Florida is out again. So out of all of that, good luck doing that math.
It's SEC roulette is what it is.
So true.
I mean, it's not just the SEC. I mean, we saw it in the NFL because the Titans had positive tests, then decided to go practice on their own, which the NFL said, no, you can't do that. Like,
yeah,
we didn't tell us. Well, we told you. Well, not till after. Who knows?
Yeah.
But then, so they get a bye week early. They're making up that game this week. They've got former Alabama running back Derrick Henry, who has a stiff arm that should be illegal in the NFL.
That is insane.
But I'm glad it isn't, being a Titans fan.
Right.
We're the SEC and Titans tailgate podcast for the rest of us. But what?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, their schedules are getting all mixed around because the Titans, because of that, couldn't play the Bills until Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Whooped up on the Bills, then had to turn around and play the Texans again on Sunday. So very short week.
Wow, very.
And
I think that I've heard there's only been one other game in the entire history of the NFL that has been played on a Tuesday, or it's been 50 or 70 years or something since they've had another game on a Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Which again, bizarre. That's the reality that we live in 2020.
But hey, if Derrick Henry loves Tuesday nights, keep playing on Tuesday nights.
Sure.
Because he had a great game against the Bills and then went off for 200 yards against the Texans. Now, granted, that was helped by an 85-yard run. Classic Derrick Henry. But I want to say that, sorry for getting into stats, that since 2018, Derrick Henry has had 3 games where he's rushed for 200 more yards. The rest of the NFL combined has had 3 games with a 200-yard rusher.
Wow.
So since 2018, 6 games where one person has rushed for over 200 yards. Half of those go to Derrick Henry.
Okay, so with Tennessee Titans currently being the premier football team in the South, there should be a lot of SEC teams that look to the Titans as maybe an example of what to do. You got Mike Leach over at Mississippi State. You got Gus Malzahn over at Auburn. They need to take a page out of Tennessee Titans' book that, like, if we're just going to put every game on Derrick Henry's back, and because we know that he's consistent, like, let's trust these running backs more instead of trying to be flashy and air raidy and trickery prone like Gus Malzahn is, or air raidy like Mike Leach is. Like, put it on the ground. Confuse some people by being consistent. Yeah, by pounding the rock. Exactly. So,
it's that combined with Mike Vrabel is extremely smart. He knows how to use penalties against his team to his advantage. I can't remember what he did last season against the Texans. The Texans are, I think, 2nd and 1. If they get a first down, they can still get 2 more first downs before scoring a touchdown. They're right on the edge of the red zone. So what does Mike Vrabel do? Because the Texans could run out the clock and then score on the last play. Mike Vrabel intentionally puts 12 guys on the field, which gives the Texans a first down. Now, they probably would have gotten it either on 2nd down, 3rd down, or 4th down. But what it does is, 1, it stops the clock. 2, it moves them so that now they can't get 2 first downs before scoring a touchdown. So they can't run the clock out completely.
That's nuts.
So the Texans do score, but they score too fast. The Titans then go down the field, score a touchdown, tie the game, and end up winning in overtime. But to understand, if I intentionally give them 5 or 10 yards, whatever it was for that penalty, go ahead and give them the first down, I know they're going to score. Then I have enough faith in my offense to go down and score. Can the Vols hire Mike Vrabel? Can he coach both teams? I've said this before. I love you, Coach Pruitt. Maybe just meet with Vrabel once or twice a week. You know, the days that you're not practicing.
Yeah, what's Vrabel doing on a Saturday?
Right, nothing. He's not doing anything. He just studying the rule book.
Yeah,
that is some brilliant coaching.
Agreed.
No offense to Nick Saban, but that's pretty smart.
Well, and bizarre, interesting, weird, what's going on. Think about Saban and his previous coaching job at the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins, with another SEC quarterback behind center this week, promoting Tua to first string and benching old Fitzmagic. After Fitzmagic they're on a 2-0 run right now. So the chess game that is being played at the NFL level is sometimes head scratching, but when it is pulled off, like Vrabel was able to do with the talent that he's got, it looks pretty genius.
Yeah.
So who knows right now if what the Dolphins are doing is a genius move or a bit of a head scratcher, but interesting nonetheless.
Here's what I think happened. They said, you know what? When we traded away Tannehill, he turned into a superstar. We got another one on our hands. Let's start Tua and let's trade Fitzpatrick and watch him go, beat us in the playoffs at his next stop. But I think you're asking me before we got started, what are my thoughts? Because you had to explain the situation to me. They've announced that Tua is going to start. Well, they've got a bye week this week, so he's got 2 weeks to prepare. But Fitzpatrick has won 2 games in a row, I think. And so what's the thought process is there? Well, I think they feel like they've got their quarterback of the future in Tua. Maybe they're getting some interest for Ryan Fitzpatrick. Maybe they're looking to make a trade to either get Tua more weapons or, get help somewhere else. That's the only thing. That's the only reason I could think that you would sit your hot quarterback.
Yeah.
I don't know how hot Fitzpatrick is. I mean, it's got to be hot with that beard in Miami. I mean,
absolutely. The fact that he's kept that thing on there.
Luckily, I shave once a week whether I need to or not, and I usually don't have to. So I don't know how hot beards actually get, but it can't be cool. I don't think it works like wool socks that are cool in the summer and warm in the winter. I don't know.
Yeah. No, if he was the Bills quarterback or maybe the Browns quarterback or maybe the Packers quarterback, I could see having that beard. That's some good insulation in some of those late fall, early winter games that you're going to be playing up in those stadiums. But yeah, that kind of neck scruff for a Miami Dolphin is, that's going to be an itchy, scratchy, sweaty mess.
Yeah. Right now, as far as best running back in the NFL, going back to Derrick Henry, I do think it all comes down to the 3rd Saturday in October. I think it's Alvin Kamara, and I think it's Derrick Henry. And Derrick Henry's been more the talk lately just because he's more that old school power running back, but he's also fast.
Yeah.
Kamara gets, it's down there in not St. Louis, New Orleans, where their running backs are mostly used as receivers coming out of the backfield. And Kamara is great in that role. But proud of the SEC representation in the NFL, especially at the running back position, as two of the top running backs in the league.
Yeah, I agreed. And speaking of SEC representation, just for a second, I'd just like to rant for a bit.
Please.
Again, 2020 is nuts. I get it. But this ranking system, the standings that we have going on in the AP top 25 and the coaches poll, they make me scratch my head so much that I look at it and it just makes me mad. Like every Sunday when I see the new rankings come out, I don't believe in any of it. I look at it with any sort of confidence because, there has been several teams that the SEC has had in the top 25 that may not be there anymore. That some of them I'm like, yes, cool, give them a shot. And then there's other teams like they have no business being here. I don't want to mention any names because I don't want to rile up any particular fan bases that may be listening, but just it makes it's nuts to me that you can also have teams that even a month ago were a month away from playing their first games that could be a top 3 team in both the polls. When who knows if it's actually going to start. And right now the SEC representation, usually we have somewhere between 5 and 7 teams in the from the SEC in that top 25, which is always a cool bragging right to say that we have that many teams represented. Right now we have 4 and they're all in the top 10. I think Bama consistently number 2 on both polls. Georgia is up there, I think in the top 5, and then Texas A&M, Florida, they kind of flip flop for the 8th, 9th, 10th place, something like that. Which it makes sense. In years past, I wait for those polls to come out on Sundays just to see where the teams line up and to see who maybe got snubbed or something like that. But it just makes me mad in 2020 because who's making these calls of a team that is yet to play where other teams have played 5-6 games at this point are not maybe getting the recognition or the understanding of being there. So I just wanted to rant. And if you have any thoughts, please feel free. It just made me mad enough that I needed to bring it up.
It feels like the early days of college football. We talked about Saturdays in the South, the ESPN Plus series about kind of the history of how we've gotten to SEC football. And you had Sewanee go play Texas and then play 4 more games over the course of 5 days. They played 5 games in 6 days. You can't do that in college football anymore. But
heck no.
Maybe in 2020. So, teams not all playing at the same time. I mean, it feels like when college football was starting. So, I understand, Pac-12, Big Ten, who is it? The MAC that's getting started as well. Not all starting at the same time. It kind of throws a wrench into things, especially with the rankings. So I don't know. Hang on. Got a text. Tennessee's ranking has been intercepted and returned for a touchdown.
Oh, no.
So,
again.
And that wasn't even Jared Garantano. That's our backup quarterback. So, I agree. The rankings this year, who knows? It's almost like, you know what? Throw out rankings until maybe around Thanksgiving.
Yeah, maybe kind of like the college football playoff rankings. Again, that becomes really the only game in town when they start announcing those. And by the time that happens, all of the major conferences will be in play and can make a better assessment of that. But it's just at this stage in the game, it's almost like they're just doing it because somebody needs that job to post those rankings every week. But I have zero faith in it anymore.
It's like the off-brand candy that you get at Walgreens because the only candy that really matters is the college football playoff rankings. Right. Because after that, Who cares?
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah.
Okay, and speaking of that, let's take a quick dive into the quintuple T, the TSIO Top of the Tailgate Tournament of Treats. Last week we had a battle of the chips, whether it be two specific types of Doritos, either Cool Ranch or nacho cheese, and then two types of salty chips, whether it's the plain Lay's or the nice Ridgy Ruffles. It seems like that the Dorito nacho cheese came out on top of that debate. But
those are my personal favorite. Just
mine too.
Just a little factoid. I don't like that word, factoid. Just a fact about Doritos. Do you know how Doritos got started?
You know what? I've heard this story, but I would love for you to tell us all, because I think this is a great story.
Yeah, so not only do we love college football without the stats, leave those on the. We're big Disney fans, and we've got another podcast called The Mouse and Men, all about just the grown-up side of Disney. Well, we've learned some things over the years, like Doritos started in Disneyland because yesterday's tortilla chips, what do we do with them? Well, let's sprinkle some flavoring on them and resell them. And so they had a partnership, I believe, with Frito-Lay.
Yes.
It had just been Lay's at the time to create this. And that's how Doritos were born. They were born
Isn't that cool?
In Disneyland. Mickey and Minnie got together and made Doritos.
So very appropriate that us being both Disney and SEC football fans, that now we have yet another tie-in that's it's a good cross-promotional advertisement for our other podcast that everyone should be listening to, by the way. That Doritos nacho cheese flavor was the overall winner for last week. And I will say, I appreciate all of those flavors of all of those chips. But to me, when it comes to the Ruffles, it goes best with like a French onion dip. So I love Ruffles, but with a dip. I love Lay's as well, but they're oftentimes best with a on the side of something else. Yes. This week, we don't need a side because we're going sweets. We're going pies. So this week, we want you guys to go to Twitter and place your ranking where you feel like is the best. And again, this isn't just your favorite pie. This is your favorite pie to consume while watching college football. So will it be pecan? Will it be apple? Will it be pumpkin? Or I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say this, and may cause quite a bit of controversy, but I'm saying for our fourth choice this week is actually cheesecake. And I know what you're saying. Yes, I know. It says cake right in the name. But if you look at a cheesecake next to other cakes, it doesn't look like it. If you put a cheesecake next to other pies, it fits right in. Very uniformly looked at as a pie.
Yeah, it's like saying UCF fits in the national championship playoffs.
Exactly. They should be considered in a different category because it is actually a different category. So this week, we're actually adding in cheesecake to the pies argument and discussion. So go to Twitter, vote for your favorite over at TSIO Pod, because I want to see if this debate heats up, because I know what my personal favorite is. And again, it may not be my personal favorite overall, but when I'm sitting back watching Southeastern Conference football, I have a favorite that I'm going to lean on. So please go vote, go argue. We want to see where you're at. Pies. We got cheesecake, pumpkin, pecan, and apple.
Well, I mean, who would have thought that cheese belongs in a cake that belongs with pies? But hey, it's 2020.
It is indeed. Anything can happen. It probably will.
Well, Chris, now I'm getting hungry. And now it is time to pregame.
Tailgate, man cave, living room, pregame, burgers, ribs, chicken wings, chip and dip, pregame, scotch and a lot of IPA, Coca-Cola, pregame, slaying darts, EA, cornhole, pregame. How you gonna watch?
So, Chris,
Yes, sir.
how are you watching the game this weekend?
All right. So last week I had a lot of fun. Actually made our wings, made our homemade blue cheese. Everything was glorious. Everything was tasty. The one thing that I didn't get to do was eat said wings with my sauce poncho. So, but going a little bit more traditional for a meal this week. I'm again in COVID land. I'm not straying outside of the home. I'm going to sit back in my nice couch on my nice TV with my nice family, and we're going to make some steak and potatoes while watching some football.
Well, I may need the sauce poncho this week because as Tennessee takes on Alabama in the fourth Saturday in October, things could get a little messy for Tennessee. But this is the rivalry game. I don't think it's going to be much of a rivalry, but yeah, I think I'm just going to have to watch it alone at home in the dark, maybe cry a little bit, and then splash some water on my face in time for the virtual tailgate Saturday night. But that's how I'm going to be watching football. And it would be wrong if we didn't make picks, because I almost forgot to make picks this week. So, Chris, let's jump into picks because we do have just a few games this weekend.
Yeah, if you're going to be delayed in making your picks, this is the week to do it because we were only supposed to have 5 games this week, but because of schedules and COVID and all this kind of stuff, we have 4 games, 3 of which were supposed to be played, one of which is a rescheduling, again, with Kentucky now playing Missouri versus playing Kentucky playing, I believe they were supposed to play Georgia, and Missouri, I believe, should have been playing Florida this week, if I'm not mistaken. But with scheduling, juggling, all of this kind of stuff, we've got 4 games. So if you wait till the last minute, you only have to make 4 decisions, which is not so bad. But yeah, we've got a good slate of games, even if they are not exactly what we want to be doing, because we've only got 4 to watch when it comes to SEC ball. We start out the day 11 a.m. Auburn versus Ole Miss. Auburn right now is a 3.5-point favorite playing in Oxford. What do you think, buddy?
Well, I'm going with Ole Miss on this one. Mainly because I'm in last place and I got to gamble big. So some things that I was looking at is Ole Miss has been better at covering the spread this season. So let's go with the Lane Train Express.
You know what? I'm actually agreeing with you on this one. I think that Ole Miss has a chance to win outright. I think that Auburn, as much promise as they always seem to have, it feels like they're in this middle part of the season where the identity of the team seems a little lost. I believe that Ole Miss also is needing to get back on the horse and to show why they have had all this hype in the offseason and in the early part of the season. I think Ole Miss could win this outright and then move everybody for Auburn being 2-2 after this game, and then Ole Miss also moving up to 2-2. So it looks like that we're in lockstep there. Then at 2:30, you know what? Let's wait till the end, and we'll both talk about the Alabama-Tennessee game after that. So let's move on to 3 p.m. We've got Kentucky taking on Missouri. Missouri looks like that they're a 5.5-point dog at this point, meaning Kentucky looks like the folks over in Vegas think that they're going to take this one outright, almost by a touchdown. What do you think?
I'm going with Missouri. I think Missouri is better against the spread, gambling big here, but also does Kentucky have an overinflated ego after beating Tennessee? I don't know. So I'm picking the Missouri Tigers, the only Tigers in the SEC, to cover the spread and possibly win this one. I don't know. What are you thinking, Chris?
We're thinking the same thing this week. It's like we got some sort of ESP thing going on.
I can't move up in the rankings if you pick the same way as me. You're supposed to pick the opposite way.
Okay, so I don't know that even though we have 4 games that we're going to be in agreement with everything, but I think just like you said, I don't know that Missouri actually wins this one, but I do think that they make it to where the spread is a non-issue. So I'm actually choosing Missouri as well, maybe not to win, but to make it closer than that 5.5 point spread. Okay, so then we're moving on to our one evening game. Starts at 5 p.m. Central Time. We've got the South Carolina Gamecocks taking on those LSU Bayou Bengals. Now, right now, the Bayou Bengals are a 7.5 point favorite. But who knows what will happen? This is going to be in Baton Rouge. So thoughts there?
Well, weird things happen at night in Baton Rouge. So I'm going with the chickens. I am picking South Carolina to cover the spread.
Oh, man. See, that's what I thought you were going to go LSU. I was going to go the opposite. But I think that South Carolina has a potential to actually pull this one out. Again, maybe we've been spending too much time talking about SEC football for too long, because I am also picking the Gamecocks in this one. Again, I don't know that the Gamecocks are going to win it, but I think it'll be a closer game. I have no idea what to expect from LSU at this point. They've only got 3 games under their belt. And South Carolina also only has 3 games under their belt, but they both have the same record. They're 1-2. But I almost expect this of the Gamecocks. So the fact that both teams are 1-2, the Bayou Bengals, I would assume, should be 3-0 with what they put on the field last year. But knowing this is a completely different year, also the fact that unless Coach O gets his wish and pulls Joe Burrow back from the Cincinnati Bengals to the Bayou Bengals, that we don't even know who's behind quarterback. And so that kind of lost identity that LSU has been struggling with this year, plus the fact that they don't even know the identity of their quarterback, or at least we don't at this point. I think that Gamecocks have a pretty good shot at least making this a close game.
Well, come on, chickens. Prove us right. So it's time. It's our namesake. This week we are the 4th Saturday in October podcast.
It's true.
The CBS game of the week. Well, maybe not. I mean, all these are TBD on our list, but the 2:30 slot goes to CBS generally. We've got
I would assume CBS. Yeah.
We've got Alabama going to Tennessee. Chris, how do you feel this one shaking out?
Well, at the beginning of the year, I thought it was going to be it could be had the potential to be the classic Alabama-Tennessee rivalry game.
You don't think it's going to be that now?
Well, not again. Kind of talking about LSU. I don't even know who's going to be behind center for Tennessee. But last year, the Alabama-Tennessee game was, at least for a couple quarters, a pretty close game. And I know that it stretched out there towards the end. And so maybe the final score, which I don't exactly remember the final score, but the final score may not show. But the Alabama-Tennessee game last year was a pretty good game, and a competitive game. And so there's the potential. But trying to look at this objectively, even as a fan of the Alabama Crimson Tide, looking at this objectively, I'm picking Alabama for the 21.5 points that they're saying at this point. When I saw what Alabama was able to do against Georgia, and again, last week's game doesn't matter that much necessarily, but Georgia and Tennessee have a lot of similarities when it comes to how they play football, the general mentality, the history behind them, and how they play hard-nosed football. And so to see what Alabama was able to do, especially in the second half against Georgia, I think they'll be able to get that 21.5 points. What about you?
Well, unlike you, I don't think that there are a lot of similarities between Tennessee and Georgia, but I'm picking Alabama to cover the spread because it's hard to believe and trust a team that lays down against the Kentucky domestic house cats I mean, I don't know how we're going to do against an elephant that boogie boards in the Gulf of Mexico. I don't know. I'm picking Alabama.
Okay.
And I hope I'm wrong.
And you know what?
I hope Tennessee fights and claws and gives a blue tick hound and just rallies the troops. But I don't know that it happens this week.
You know what? And I think I respect that choice. Again, objectively taking our fandom out of the way, being able to look objectively at a game and to just look at the matchups and seeing what's there. I see somebody who wants to choose Tennessee, but with so many questions has a hard time doing that. So I respect that choice, even though I know it's a difficult one for you to make.
But hey, I would love to see Nick Saban get his first loss against a former assistant. It's just, I don't think it's happening this week. Crazier things have happened. It is 2020.
True. Well, the fact that we only have 4 games to choose from and to watch and to get excited about when it comes to SEC ball is a bit disheartening. But at least we get to watch our namesake go at it, even if it's not on the third Saturday in October, which again, I feel like that it's now becoming less of a possibility for it to be on the third Saturday in October because we've got a handful of years now where it hasn't been the case. So maybe we're just going to have to change our name to, at some point in October, our teams will play podcast. But until then, we'll keep it to the third Saturday in October. It was a joy chatting with you. We would love to hear from everybody else out there. Do you think that we're dumb for the decisions that we're making? Do you want to argue with me on the fact that cheesecake is called cake, but it's not really cake? Come on. And like, how do you get away with putting cheese in a cake in the first place, or a pie, because that's really what it is. Join us over on the socials at TSIO Pod. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your reports from the game. So feel free to send us a voice memo of what you feel like that your teams are doing. We'll put it on the podcast. We'll put it on here as a sideline reporter. You wanted your chance to break into the journalism game, do it here on the third Saturday in October show, because we love the back and forth. Join us for our virtual tailgate that we're doing every week in the SEC season. What time are we starting that this week, buddy?
So the late game kicks off at 5 Central. So we will kick off our tailgate at 4:30.
Gotcha.
That we'll still probably be watching the end of the Tennessee-Alabama game, but come to see my tears.
Well, we will do that indeed. Thank you all so much for joining us on the third Saturday in October show. Whether you're joining us on YouTube or on the podcast, we love it that you're here. We want to hear from you. So again, drop us a line on the socials. Go over to our website, third Saturday in October, where you get a chance to enter the Pick'em League. Even if you haven't picked so far this season, this is about bragging rights. This is about enjoying the games. So if you haven't picked all season, go join the tailgate virtually over on the website. Go do your Pick'em by joining our CBS League for a third Saturday in October. And until then, should I say it or should you? You're always so good at this. But I don't know if we should change tradition on a week like this.
This week, more than any other, roll Vols.
Roll balls, baby.